Growing up, I always knew I was playing second fiddle to my sister, Emma. Even now, at 28, with a thriving career in software engineering, nothing I accomplish seems to matter to my parents. Let me give you a glimpse of what I deal with. Emily, why can't you dress more like your sister? She always looks so put together, my mother remarked at our weekly family dinner, completely ignoring the promotion I had just announced. Mom, I'm leading a major project at Silicon Tech now, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. That's nice, dear, she replied dismissively. But did you hear that Emma's boyfriend James is taking her to Paris next month? Isn't that wonderful? I caught my best friend Ava's eye across the table. I had brought her along for moral support, and she gave me the same look she always did whenever my family pulled this nonsense. Actually, Mrs. Jackson, Ava jumped in, her voice polite but firm. Emily's project could revolutionize her company's entire security system. Before my mother could even acknowledge it, my father interrupted. Speaking of security, Emma and James are looking at houses in the Heritage District. Now that's a secure investment. I stared at my plate, pushing my food around, trying to hold my tongue. Memories flashed through my mind. The student loans I had worked 3 jobs to pay off while Emma got a free ride. The family vacations I wasn't invited to because Emma needed quality time with Mom and Dad. Have you seen Emma's engagement ring? My mother gushed, shoving her phone toward Ava. James proposed last weekend. $20,000. Can you believe it? How nice, Ava said flatly, squeezing my hand under the table. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Mom says you seemed jealous at dinner. Don't worry, you can be a bridesmaid, if you stick to the diet plan I make for you. You don't have to respond to that, Ava said firmly as we sat in my apartment. Your sister's a piece of work. I sighed, rubbing my temples. Did I tell you what happened at work today? My mentor, Diana, said I'm being considered for the executive track. That's amazing. Ava beamed. I smiled despite myself. See? You're crushing it on your own terms. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Emma. James's family is coming to dinner tomorrow. Try not to embarrass me by talking about your computer stuff. I sighed, sinking deeper into the couch. You know what the worst part is? I muttered. I keep trying. I keep thinking that if I just achieve enough, they'll finally see me. Ava squeezed my hand again. Well, I see you, she said, her voice gentle but firm. And trust me, your sister's perfect life isn't as perfect as she pretends. I had no idea then how right Ava was, or how much everything was about to implode. The wedding preparations set off a chain of events that would unravel every lie my family had built around Emma's golden pedestal. A few weeks later, the big day arrived, and I found myself sitting in the back row at my own sister's wedding reception. Not in the bridal party. Not even in a family section. Just shoved into a corner like some distant acquaintance. Can you believe she put you back here? Ava whispered, adjusting her dress. Her own sister? Honestly? I can. I watched Emma glide across the room in her designer gown, our parents beaming beside her. Everything was going exactly as expected, until a server placed a fancy envelope next to my plate. Thinking it was some kind of wedding favor, I opened it. My stomach twisted as I read the contents. Is this some kind of joke? I whispered, my hands trembling. Inside was a bill, $200 for my plate, along with a handwritten note. We expect payment before you leave. Let me see that, Ava said, snatching the paper from my hands. Her face turned crimson as she read it. Oh, hell no. She pulled out her phone and began recording discreetly. Emily, dear. My mother's syrupy voice interrupted as she approached our table. Did you get the envelope? I could barely keep my voice steady. Mom, are you seriously charging me for attending my own sister's wedding? Well, sweetie, Emma thought it was only fair since you didn't contribute to the wedding expenses, she said smoothly. Unlike James's family, who have been so generous. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed James watching from a distance, looking uncomfortable. He hesitated, but before he could say anything, Emma sauntered over, her gown trailing behind her like a trophy. Oh good, she said, smirking. You got the bill. Just trying to teach my little sister about financial responsibility. Not all of us can waste our lives playing with computers. Playing with computers? I snapped. I'm a senior software engineer. I make 6 figures. Then paying shouldn't be a problem, she said, her smirk widening. Consider it your wedding gift, since you clearly couldn't afford anything from my registry. That's when James finally stepped in. His voice was low but firm. Emma, we talked about this. This isn't right. Stay out of it, James, she hissed. This is family business. My hands trembled as I reached for my purse and pulled out my checkbook. You want your money? Fine. My voice was tight as I scribbled on the check. Here's your $200. Consider it the last thing you'll ever get from me. Don't be dramatic, Emily, my father said, appearing suddenly. Your sister just got married. Can't you think about someone besides yourself for once? I handed the check over, stood up, and walked out. Behind me, Emma's shrill voice cut through the air. See? She always has to make everything about herself. What none of them knew was that this bill wasn't just a bill, it was the final straw. And thanks to Ava's quick thinking, we had proof of everything. 2 months after the wedding disaster, I sat in Diana's office at Silicon Tech, staring at an opportunity that could change everything. Seattle needs a strong leader, Emily, Diana said. The position comes with double your current salary and full team control. Just as excitement bubbled in my chest, my phone buzzed. Another text from Emma. Need to talk ASAP. Financial emergency. I ignored it and focused on Diana. When would I need to decide? Friday, she said. Then she hesitated. But Emily, there's something else. I frowned. What is it? A client flagged irregular transactions from Jackson Family Enterprises, she said carefully. Your parents' business. I froze. Irregular transactions? Later that day, Ava burst into my office, her face flushed with urgency. Emily, you're not going to believe this, she said, breathless. Your parents' company, they've been running 2 sets of books. Emma's been using the business accounts like her personal piggy bank. My stomach dropped. How do you know this? James called me, Ava continued, her voice filled with barely contained fury. He found gambling receipts. Hundreds of thousands, Emily. She's been forging your dad's signature. My phone rang. Emma. Again. This time, I answered. You're on speaker. Emily, I need $50,000, she said, her voice shaky. I know you have savings. It's just a loan. Things with James are tight right now. I inhaled slowly, keeping my voice cold. You mean because you're gambling away his money, too? Silence. Then a panicked whisper. How did you? Who told you? Does it matter? I said evenly. The answer is no. I'm your sister, she cried. After everything Mom and Dad did for you. Did for me. I snapped, my patience finally snapping. You mean charging me for your wedding? Making me pay back every penny of college while they funded your shopping spree? There was a pause before Emma's voice cracked. Because you're the strong one, she whispered. I'm not built for struggling. Ava, still recording, finally spoke up. You built your entire life on making Emily struggle instead. Emma's tone shifted. Is that Ava? Are you recording this? Emily, tell your little spy to. I hung up. Minutes later, my mother called. Your sister is crying, she said, her voice sharp with accusation. How dare you refuse to help family? Like you helped me? I said icily. Should I send you a bill for this phone call? Don't be bitter, Emily. Her tone softened, trying to manipulate me. We heard about your promotion. Seattle branch, right? You can't abandon your family now. Emma needs you. Emma needs consequences, I said firmly. In the background, I heard my father's panicked voice. They're auditing the business. James's father must have reported us to the IRS. Emma's wailing grew louder. My mother's voice turned sugary sweet again. Emily, you're so good with numbers. Maybe you could help us sort this out. No, I said simply. We're not family anymore. I hung up and turned to Ava. Send me copies of everything you recorded. Already did. Ava smirked. James too. Heck, he's filing for divorce, by the way. Turns out Emma's been lying to him about, well, everything. Just then, Diana poked her head into my office. "Emily, Cattle wants an answer." I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in years. "Tell them I accept." 1 year later, I stood on stage at the Women in Tech Awards, accepting the Innovation Lead of the Year award. The Seattle skyline sparkled through the convention center windows, bathed in the golden glow of twilight, reflecting the gleam of my trophy. My phone buzzed. A text from Ava. "Emma's gambling debts finally caught up. Your parents had to sell the house to cover what she stole. They're moving into a tiny apartment next week." I slid my phone back into my pocket, focusing on the networking reception. Just as I raised my champagne glass, my new assistant approached. "Call from James Harrison," she said. Finding a quiet corner, I dialed back. "Emily," James began, his voice steady but somber. "The divorce is final. But there's something you should know. The IRS investigation? They found everything." I braced myself. Everything. 20 years of tax fraud, he said grimly. Emma's embezzlement was just the tip of the iceberg. Your parents, they've lost everything. The business. Their retirement. All of it. I sipped my champagne, letting the news sink in. And Emma. She's living in their apartment's spare room. Nobody will hire her with the fraud charges pending. Oh, and, James hesitated. She tried opening credit cards in your name last month. She what? Don't worry, I caught it in time. Being a financial advisor has its perks. She can't touch you. That night, as I settled into my hotel suite, my room phone rang. An unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Baby girl, please." My mother's voice was thick with tears. "We made mistakes." Mistakes. My voice turned icy. "You systematically destroyed my self-worth, enabled Emma's abuse, and tried to drag me down with you." "Emma wants to apologize," she pleaded weakly. "She's changed. We've all changed." In the background, I heard Emma's muffled voice. "Tell her I'll go to therapy. I'll do anything." I exhaled slowly, staring at the city lights. "You had decades to change," I said sharply. "Funny how it only matters now that you've lost everything." "We're living off Social Security," my mother whispered. "The IRS took everything." "Consequences, Mom." My voice was steady. "Remember when you taught Emma she'd never have to face any? Well, this is what they look like." I hung up and stepped onto my balcony, watching the sunset paint the Seattle sky in shades of purple and gold. My phone chimed again. A message from Diana. "Bard loved your presentation. GP position is yours if you want it." Another text popped up. This time from Ava. "Your old house just sold. Guess who bought it? James's private investment firm. They're turning it into a women's shelter." A smile tugged at my lips. Emma had once sneered at my little computer job. Now I was making 7 figures, driving a Tesla to my corner office, while she filled out job applications at fast food joints. My phone buzzed one last time. Emma. Using Dad's number. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm your sister." I blocked that number too. Then, I ordered room service. Tomorrow, I would wake up in my luxury condo, ready to lead my team in revolutionizing tech security. Meanwhile, Emma would wake up on a pull-out couch. Mom would clip coupons. Dad would struggle to pay the electric bill. They say success is the best revenge. But sometimes, success isn't about revenge at all. It's about walking away from people who never deserved you in the first place.